frustrating, irritating, but they don't anger me. Like they don't mess with my blood pressure. One thing that messes with Matt's blood pressure, one thing that kills me, like absolutely slays me. All right, my friends, welcome back to another poorly established video of me explaining things about this Tesla Model S Plaid. So first off, just let me know if you prefer these sort of types of dynamic walk around videos rather than the static sitting in a chair answering your FAQ type deal. We're gonna hop in the car and I'm gonna tell you everything I absolutely hate about this car. I figured it would be fitting to hop in the passenger seat before we hop in the driver's seat. Why, you ask? We'll get to that in a second. Keep watching. Some quick housekeeping so you don't berate me in the comments. I own several gas performance cars and some diesel 4x4 trucks and SUVs for a business, but I've overall owned four Teslas. Two at the moment, a Model Y Performance and a Model S Plaid. This Model S Plaid, I've had two Model S Plaids prior. Nothing went wrong with them. I was just in an opportunity, I've talked about it before, to sell them and make a little bit of cash because there's no tax on EVs in one of my primary state I live in. I'd say I'm quite a bit unbiased, owning several performance cars, supercars, diesel trucks, and multiple electric cars. I see a lot of people really rail down on certain things in the comments, and those aren't things we're going to get into. We're going to get into other things that you probably maybe haven't heard, or if you have a Tesla, you may experience this. If you're a prospective Tesla owner or buyer, this is something to keep in mind. Also, keep in mind, I love this car. I'm just going to tell you the things that suck about it because that's fair. Overall, I'd say I'm rather unbiased. You can let me know what you think in the comments. We're giving away a car to 100K subscribers. Around 90K, we're going to buy a vehicle, $1,500 to $5,000 price range, and whoever wins, you have the choice of taking the car, taxes, fees, whatever paid, or just the cash. So consider that. Quickly, common issues you hear that happen all the time that I can report my and only my experience, right? So the panel gaps, fit and finish, virtually perfect in this car. I had one small issue that I wouldn't even categorize as a fit and finish issue. I would categorize it as an assembly issue that I've beaten to death in other videos. I'm not going to get into it, but involved this trim piece. It's totally fine. There are virtually no panel gaps. The Tesla Model S Plaid, who's going to buy this? Especially now at the price range it's in currently. And I think that's smart to talk about because the past is the past. And now if you're cross-shopping this with a Lexus or, Lexus sedan or some sort of executive sedan like a GSF, or you're going for Porsche SUVs or Porsche sedans, the Panamera, the Taycan, all that stuff. I have owned several, and the quality control on those, as outstanding as Porsche says it is, I agree, it is. You don't have, this is stuff you don't often touch. I don't know if this is in frame, but it's the A-pillar. There isn't, like, a hard structure behind it. It's kind of flimsy, but that's not something I touch. It's just something I visually see. I don't know why you're holding on to that or touching that. That's weird. But in a Porsche, that's rock solid. Now, that really doesn't have anything to do with the user experience, so that's something, personally, I overlook and just don't care for. I don't even overlook it. I'm aware of it. It's just kind of silly to worry about. But the panel gaps that people freak out about, I have seen them on other cars, but speaking from my experience, just so we know that the exception does not disprove the rules or the stereotype. There are exceptions, and whether those are the exceptions or my cars are the exceptions, or they somehow knew that these vehicles that I was purchasing were going to be on a YouTube channel, I doubt that they cherry-pick that. I ordered it on the website just like any other typical user would. But the fit and finish, virtually not as bad as any of my other supercars that I've owned. And I'm saying supercars, performance cars. I can absolutely say that this Model S Plaid and my previous Teslas and the one that my fiance drives, the Model Y Performance, is built better than any McLaren I have ever owned. Keep in mind that McLarens are British, and you take that for what you will. I've had Lamborghinis where sometimes the stitching and stuff fails. It's under warranty. They'll replace it, whatever. Tesla would do the same thing. If you have something fail, they'll replace it. It's really a non-issue. Charging is, it's the last thing we're going to get into, and then I'll dig into the things that I absolutely hate about this car. The car charges overnight at home while I sleep. Extremely convenient versus stopping at a gas station, taking sort of, if you will look at it this way, a fuel detour. No matter where you are, if you pass a gas station or not, you're still going to pull in, stop, fill up. If you're in a car that has this level of performance, people are going to either look at you, stare at you, say weird shit, whatever. It's kind of funny. Learn how to take a joke. If that stuff bothers you, don't be sensitive. And talk to you. I've had homeless people come up and tell me that my street bike can blow the doors off that thing. Yeah, I fucking hope so, Jeremy. Shut up. Listen, there are going to be plenty of things that you absolutely love about this car. Some of the automation involved in mind. But I want you to know that you should, if you have this car, get this car, play with the settings. Play with the settings as much as you can. I'll flip you around in a second. We'll get my mug out of the view in just a moment. But if you make everything automatic and automated, some of it's super convenient. The routines are convenient in the app, and setting all that stuff and preconditioning is really awesome, and something I never even thought about before I got this car, and I was like, wow. You think I have a remote start, that's fine. But it shuts off in 10 minutes if it's factory or whatever, or if it's not factory, there are sometimes range complications where you can't adjust the temperature. This car you have, because it's all in-house and in circle, you can modify everything. I think they're taking the rolly window option away. I never really used that. It kind of freaked me out to vent my windows because it's like, what if it doesn't respond correctly? I think that's sort of primitive of me to think that way, because there's never really that issue. The car, typically, my Model S and the Model Y, always respond back. Now, keep in mind, I have 30,000 miles on the car now. We just did a 25,000 mile review that was filmed a couple weeks ago, but I think, well, a couple months ago, posted a couple weeks ago, maybe a little bit sooner than that. But this is what drives me nuts. If you go in here and you have all this stuff on, let's put ourselves in drive and we'll see what's happening. This is the high beam, okay? Low beam, high beam. Tap it and you'll notice it obviously taps like if you had your regular stalk set up, you pull and it sort of does that. Now if you hold it, watch what happens. It has this little like loading screen and it stays on, right? Bear with me here, okay? In 1 second, I'm gonna zoom out of here. You turn that off. Say if you go up into this stuff, let's go to lights, auto high beam. If you turn on auto high beam, I don't know if this will really present this as much as I need it to, but if you hold this on and there are cars or anything in front of you, signs, reflectors, the car is not, see how I'm trying to keep my high beams on and they're just falling off? The auto high beams in this vehicle suck. And that may sound really dumb and nitpicky. It is. There aren't many things wrong with this car. Like, nothing really bothers me. It's all pretty freaking sweet. The charge ports could charge a little bit quicker, but that was a little bonus tip for you. The charging docks. But as far as the high beams, sometimes your boy needs to see while he's driving, and sometimes the regular low beams, as bright as they are not bright enough. Sometimes your boy just wants a little bit more light. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know how else to dig into that more, and I don't really need to, just for the sake of brevity, to be as compendious as possible. The high beams, auto high beams, suck. Turn that off if you have any concern with the auto high beams. If you don't, then ignore me, and that's fine. But auto high beams absolutely blow. And while we're on the topic of automation, over here on this nifty little steering column, you have the windshield wiper button. Yeah? So here's my concern with that too. There are no settings for the wipers as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, no other settings other than that. You hold it, and it does that if you hold it, but that's not what I'm complaining about. Use this scrolly wheel. Again, I'm not complaining about that. If you put this on auto, don't mind my tire pressure being... Auto windshield wipers absolutely suck. Like, when I say they absolutely suck, I mean they are... It is the number one, and this is a pretty good spot to be if that's what annoys you most, because typically this sucks on most cars. The Plaid is not an exception to that. The auto wipers absolutely blow. Now, if we want to go into this whole system of automation while I'm complaining about it, because again, this is a video focusing on the things that don't work well and Tesla should fix. I'm going to get into some other physical, tangible things too, but stick with me here, okay? That sucks. Say you're driving in Autopilot, right? Say you're driving in Autopilot and some reason or not, it disengages you, kicks you out. Now here's a fun trick. If you are, just say you're kicked out of it, right? You go forward. Mostly if you're going slow speeds or on city roads, I wouldn't recommend doing this on the highway, pulling off the shoulder and pulling back on, but just throwing it out there because it resets during the next drive. Unless you're booted out of FSD, it still resets during the next drive, but you only get a few chances with that. It'll reset and you'll be able to autopilot. Now, autopilot, I like having autopilot where I can drive and I can just throw it into, oh, I don't have my seatbelt on, but you can throw it into autopilot and be good. You know what I mean? That's kind of my thing, is I like having the one click to go into autopilot and not two. If you get booted out of autopilot, I'm almost positive, I have not found out how, there is no possible way for you to get into cruise control if you have the one-click setting. If you have the two-click setting, I think you can still hit cruise control. But if you have the one-click setting, which I prefer, I like it more than clicking twice. Again, I am splitting molecular-sized hairs here. Like, I am splitting the smallest of the atoms. But it sucks, dude. I can't stand it. I absolutely cannot stand that. And it's just something to consider. Now, those are mostly the first three things that I think would be nice to refine in some other way. I don't have any recommendations for it for Tesla right now, other than I think my girl's car doesn't have FSD. This does. This, you can go in autopilot and the wipers are free to control. I don't know if that's a Model 3 and a Y thing where that doesn't happen, but in her Y, you can't do it. I've had FSD on my past two cars and this one, so maybe it's an FSD thing. I don't. Say you are just driving along, and I don't know if I have anything to show an example of this. Maybe I do. We can use this. Say you have a credit card right there or something. That little slot right there, this is pretty thick, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't thin like a credit card because it's got paperwork in it. If you leave something there, it can slide in and fall down. Just want to throw that out there. Just want to throw that out there, that is something that could happen. It's very possible, and it's a huge problem if you lose something in there, because you're going to have to remove all this. You're going to have to remove all that stuff. Other than that, I don't know what else to tell you. Actually, I have one last thing. And this is probably, like, none of the other things anger me. They are frustrating, irritating, but they don't anger me. Like, they don't mess with my blood pressure. One thing that messes with Matt's blood pressure, one thing that kills me, like absolutely slays me, If my girl's in the car and her phone is hooked up as a key to this car, it is just because it makes life easier that way. If I ever want her to drive or need her to move the car. Sometimes, if she's in the car already and I walk away, like say, oh, I left my wallet, let me go in the house and grab something. Let me go get my water. Let me go get something. I forgot sunglasses. Anything. Come back in the car, you walk far enough away, depending on the atmospheric pressure, depending on whatever other devices are around, the car will link to her phone and make her phone sort of the primary until I get in and start driving. That is fine. I'm not in any rush, but the only thing is you have this thing called easy entry. Easy entry. If I put my foot on the brake, watch what happens. Going to drive, see how it switches to my driver profile and it starts moving around? I love that. That's great. It really is amazing. It's incredible. But what sucks is I'm like 1.5 feet taller than her. Like I'm almost 2 feet taller than her. I'm a lot of human. I'm a much larger bag of flesh and water than she is. Although, I mean, don't get me wrong, she's got some great bags of flesh, but I get, it's like a death trap. It's like a booby trap when I walk in. I get in and it switches to her driver profile when I go to drive off, and it just like flash bangs you. It just sucks. It sucks. That's all. That's all I want to say. That's all I want to talk about. I just wanted to get those quick little snippets out there for you. To preface this, sorry for maybe being a little long-winded in the front end, but I just had to preface things I really like about the car first, because, well, not things I really like, but like, you know, dispel some myths. Had to dispel some myths. Other than that, I hope you have a great day. Make sure you stay alive. And just remember, I don't know, subscribe. Mm-hmm.